Hey, what is going on, guys? Hey, I'm putting together this YouTube video because I'm assuming it's going to go on YouTube. It could go on anything, really. I wanted to walk through this free guide PDF on basically getting the most out of your employees, and especially what does it look like to have motivated rock star employees. And this is not clickbait. It's not fluff. Literally, you can actually have this, and you don't need to pay your people tons of money to get it. Although that is important. But a lot of people, their approach to management and leadership is that, if you envision like all the hires in the world, there's, the ones that are just like terrible. There's the ones that are average. And then there's some that are good. And then there's this tiny, tiny, tiny slice that are just phenomenal, amazing, wonderful people. And what I've learned is that actually that gap that slice is actually much larger than you think. In fact, many good employees can fall in that bucket, and actually plenty of what people would call average employees would fall into that bucket as well. If you don't know me, my name is Blake Benz, and I do a lot of business coaching. I help people with their internal strategy. Basically, I help companies grow and scale. And as you've probably figured out, if your company's ever going to grow, you have to find people that are talented who can actually do the things that you don't want to do. And it's not like things that are like beneath you. It's just that as your company grows, there's so many more things you have to put your attention on. And so you need other people to take those things off your plate so that you can continue focusing on what are the big things that actually make my business grow. So having said that, what I wanted to do, this is a real simple free guide, PDF, cheat sheet, ebook. I don't really know what all the terms you can use with it. If you haven't read this, I got a bug in my room here. Hang on. I think I got it. If you haven't read this, I'll put the link in the description guide, and you can check it out and give it a shot. Now, I mentioned I'm a coach. I've worked with some really awesome brands, plenty of Fortune brands, Walmart, Tyson, plenty of small businesses, medium businesses. This stuff works. I've seen it work, and I've worked with great companies that were already doing this, and they were like, yeah, this is so common sense. Why aren't people doing this more? So if you've never met me before, if you've never watched one of my videos before, dude, I'm real candid. I'm real authentic. I just tell it like it is. So that's kind of my style. Either you'll love it, you'll hate it. Who knows? But anyway, what we'll do is we'll go through this guide. I'll tell you a couple things, tell you how you can actually use it and apply it, and also help you understand what I mean by certain things in it. So let's just dive in. So this is called 7 Steps for Motivated Rockstar Employees. It's the employees that are totally engaged. It's the ones that show up early on Monday morning. They're like, yeah, let's do this. The ones that will go the extra mile, who aren't just doing like the absolute bare minimum. Hang on. Excuse me. It's not the ones who are going to do the absolute bare minimum. They want to see your business grow. They feel a sense of ownership in your business. So let's talk about 7 things that you can do to actually get this in your employees. So first things first is I talk a little bit about bad bosses, and this may feel a little, maybe you're diving into the guide and you're already like, whoa, why are we talking about bad bosses? I thought we were talking about how to make employees better. And just the simple truth is that you've probably heard the expression that leadership flows from the top down. Well, whenever there's a bad employee, typically it's because of the boss that's leading them. In fact, I worked with someone who the boss was hiring me to help this person. It was a toxic employee and said, I need you to fix this person. And I met with this person for hours. And then I went back to the boss and I said, yeah, this employee is your fault. Like, you created this. And he was like, what are you talking about? And I was like, when you did this, this, and this, over the years, it's now made this person who's disengaged, cynical, whatever. And not that as employees, everyone, we have, it's our decision and our attitude that dictates how we approach life. And so absolutely, it's there's a level of responsibility for the toxic employee, but it's hard for bosses to realize that, yikes, the things that I'm doing is causing this person to be disengaged. Now, the flip side of that is when you approach management from the right way, you can actually turn these disengaged employees into really awesome employees. And so that's kind of the focus for today. I mentioned here, your business is never going to reach its potential without the right people. You know, you can spend forever on like the perfect strategic plan. It doesn't matter though without the right people to carry out the vision. So let's dive right into this. The first one, you got to tell them why. And I got a story here about Sarah, who's a teacher. Basically, the research behind this is at my old company, we did some research on why do people, there's plenty of studies on why people quit their jobs. But what I was interested in was why do people stay in their jobs even when it's miserable? Like even when it's like, you've heard the expression, people don't quit companies, they quit bosses. Well, actually, the data doesn't really show that. What the data shows is that even when there are bad bosses, people will stay in their companies when they feel like their work matters. And what's so funny about this is I get a lot of pushback on this topic because I talk about, the mission matters more than anything. And if you can have a compelling mission, then people will feel connected to that and they will give everything they have to your company. Now, the reason I get pushback is because like mission statements have become this very stereotypical thing that people kind of blow off. And so what happens is you have like this half a page long mission statement that no one knows, no one can remember it. It's a totally meaningless statement and people can't cling to that. They can't resonate with that. People like to know, and especially millennials like to know, which millennials are going to be the majority of the workforce. So it's good to know this. People like to know why their work matters for the big picture, but more importantly, they like to know how their specific job matters in the big picture of the company. And so you can check out the story, you can read this story, but basically, even if I have like the most, I don't want to call it like a menial job, we'll just call it like baseline job. No matter what kind of job I have, if I can connect that to the customers that I'm impacting, or to the difference that we're making, it's going to make me a lot more motivated as to why my work's so important. Because if I don't do my job, now here are people that aren't getting impacted the way that they could have been if I actually done my job well. So you got to tell them the why. And it's actually the source of Simon Sinek talks about this in his book, Start With Why. His is more like your own personal mission and goals. But answer this question for people because they really care. The second one, and it's so funny to me because this is not a new concept, but it's one that people really struggle with, and I call it fire your best employee. And Gary Vee's been talking about this a lot lately. He's gotten a lot of pushback, but again, this isn't a new concept. The people in your company. There's actually a great book called Multipliers that talks about this, that people are either multiplying your company or they're detracting in your company. And basically the concept is you could have the most skilled employee in the world, but if they are a toxic person, if they're a bad culture fit, if they make everyone else's lives miserable, it's an overall negative impact, right? And I tell the story here of David. It's an actual guy that I worked with, really was a total rock star. But I had a handful of other people on the team who I knew that they could never be productive or really reach their potential as long as David was on the team. And so I remember when I let him go thinking, well, what if these people don't rise to their potential? And I just cut like my biggest revenue builder, right? And so I went on a limb, let David go, and sure enough, everyone else, they just began to flourish, they began to grow. And basically when you fire your best employee, you're basically saying, I care more about the long-term success of this company than the short-term gain that this one person is giving me too. Also on that, if you have a really awesome employee and other people who aren't doing what they need to be doing, don't do this thing that happens a lot in management where it's like, well, David's my go-to guy, so I'm going to give him this job because I know he can do it right. Because really what happens is you have the best employee who says, well, geez, I'm doing so good in my job, I have to do everyone else's job, so why should I keep doing my job well, right? And so you also have to make sure you actually hold those other people accountable too. Number 3, give 1-sentence job descriptions. This really isn't about like parenting your employees or like treating them like they're stupid or, making it seem like, I think you're an idiot, so I'm only going to give you very short words. The whole concept is that people, whenever they're specialized in their giftings and their skill set, they absolutely flourish. And it's not just about like walking in their calling. It's also about people are really, really good at what they do when they can focus and they know exactly what's expected of them, right? It's kind of like, if you're a chef or you're a cook, let's say you're a cook and your chef comes along and says, hey, I need you to make 10 salads. You know what the role is, right? It's like, I need to make these 10 salads. Well, if instead of that, the chef comes in and says, hey, I need you to start prepping lunch for today. In your mind, it's like, okay, well, what are the things for lunch? Maybe it's salads, but maybe it's, I don't know. I don't work in the restaurant industry. Maybe it's something else. Maybe I start prepping something else. And then the boss is frustrated because he's like, why didn't you make the 10 salads? And it's like, dude, I didn't know, right? So you want to be absolutely crystal clear on what you expect from your employees. A great way to do that is by giving 1-sentence job descriptions. This is exactly what I need from you. And it doesn't have to be low level. It can be high level. It can actually be a description of something you really need your people to do. So, don't be shy about giving those high level things. Just make it really clear, right? And there's a really great story of the CEO of Frito-Lay. They were really struggling. And the way they flipped their business around is they had these salespeople who were doing like all these different things. Like they were analyzing data, they were forecasting, they were using like these really cool software tools to like figure out, where are the industries that we need to pivot into. And they were struggling. And the CEO basically said, look, cut all the crap. Your only job is to get out there and sell. And just made it like totally crystal clear for them, just totally simplified it down for them. And they went off and absolutely blew the company away. I mean, just did incredible things for the market share, for the overall revenue, for actually the overall profits of the company, simply because they simplified it down. So that's the concept here. And you're welcome to check that story out as well. This one I love, tell them the hard truths. And I love this one because I've realized that a lot of owners just don't like being honest with their employees. You hear like the stereotype of like the sort of like harsh boss who is like real cut and dry and painful and really mean. And honestly, that's really not. I mean, at least in my experience, most bosses I've worked with haven't been that way. They're actually really empathetic and they want to see their employees do well. Well, what typically happens though, a lot of times is we're really good at noticing when employees aren't hitting the mark. We're really bad about actually telling them. Or we'll find, you've heard like the example of like the compliment sandwich, like tell them a positive, then give them the news, then tell them a positive again. And what I've realized is like, instead of focusing on any of those things, just be really direct and clear. I mean, you don't have to like totally wreck the person, but be really honest and clear as to, hey, here's how you missed it. And I was talking to somebody who he was saying that actually I hear stories like this actually a lot, but he had an employee who was just really struggling and it had been struggling for like a year. And finally I was like, dude, you got to tell them. You have to tell this employee that they're struggling. And so we came back and I was like, well, did you tell him? He's like, yeah, I said this. And I was like, so you didn't tell him. And this story that I put in here is the same exact deal. Back when I used to be a high school teacher, and we had a teacher who was consistently late, and I literally watched I think I said the principal in the story, is actually the assistant principal, who went over and was like, everything going okay at home? Is everything all right? And the teacher was like, yeah, everything's fine. And she was like, okay, well, I know you've been late, so I was just checking. And the teacher walks away and they're like, wow, that was really thoughtful of them. Cool. And the assistant principal was like, well, I told him. And it's like, you didn't tell him though. And sure enough, the teacher continued to be late because they didn't get it, right? So be really direct to your people. And they want to know that too, by the way. Sometimes we don't feel like people want to know we don't want to know how we're missing it, but actually people like knowing when they've missed it. So number 5, let them fail repeatedly. the bottom line here is people cannot be successful when they live in an environment where it's not okay to fail. And it's not that, like, obviously if you have someone who just can't do the job, it's not about, like, if someone is like incompetent, then yeah, absolutely, that person no longer needs to work here. But I'm talking more about people who they live in an environment where it's like, I'm going to lose my job if I mess up. And there's a really great concept. It's called Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And you can Google it. It's an awesome pyramid. And it basically, I don't know if I talked about it in here. I didn't. Basically, what it talks about is it's a pyramid that talks about how to become like a fulfilled, awesome person, I have to meet these certain needs. And the need at the very bottom, the most important need, is like my emotional and physical safety. And so if I am beating my employees, they're not going to feel physically safe. And they're also never going to be that awesome, incredible employee. They're never going to reach the top or the pinnacle of the pyramid. The same thing's true for emotional security. If I'm fearful at work, if I'm scared, if I'm living in the middle of drama, I'm never going to be high performing. And so this basically talks about that concept and how, getting employees to be really engaged and really productive means creating that very healthy environment for them. Number 6, this one is it's not a complicated concept. It's basically pay your people what they're worth. If you want an awesome employee, you have to be prepared to pay for an awesome employee. And unfortunately, what I've realized in a lot of owners is, and I'm a business owner myself, a lot of times we look for literally any way possible to get great results out of our employees without actually paying them. If you live in the United States, we have a restaurant called Applebee's. It is awful. That's my story and I'm sticking to it. It's a terrible restaurant. I am sorry if you watch this video and it's like, your absolute favorite. You go there every week. I don't know. Well, so Applebee's is a terrible restaurant, and like an owner will be like, hey, I got you a gift card to Applebee's. Thanks for doubling our revenue last year. Or I talked to one boss who he had 12 staff people, and he was instituting this very intense, basically micromanagement strategies where he was going to go around to everyone's desk and like inspect their workspace. And I was like, that sounds like a lot, dude. Like, really? And he was like, yeah, I feel like I need to do it. And I said, well, what's revenue been like? And he's like, oh, it's been great. They've tripled it in the last 9 months. And I'm like, wow. And that's your thank you to them? Like, come on. You got to think about how you're actually going to reward your people. So pay them what they're worth. And also, if they're bringing in great success for your company, give them a share of that. Let them experience that with you as a way to show them, hey, I appreciate the success you're giving to our company. Yes, your name's on it. Yes, you've taken on all the risk of running this company, but for the sake of, putting away your ego, bring these people in on that success and pay them what they're worth. And then the last one, number 7, just believe in them. It's amazing to me, the owners who they hire people who they see as incompetent. They hire people who, they hire them for a job and then they don't actually give them that job, or they tell them, you have to prove it to me that you can do this. Or my favorite is a really close friend of mine who she got hired to do this certain job. It's basically like a project management role. Well, on week 1, she started actually doing that role and being really, I don't want to say aggressive, like she wasn't crossing lines, but she was just very assertive and like, let's do it. Like, let's get after this. And her boss called her in on day 1 and said, hey, you're making decisions that I don't want you to make. And she was like, ooh, I'm really sorry, but on my job description, it says do these things. So I thought I was she's like, yeah, it says that, but I don't want you to actually do those things until I know you can do it. I need you to earn my trust and my belief first. And she was like, why did you hire me then? If I didn't already have that from you. So believe in your people. If you are hiring people and then telling them how to do their job, it's like, why did you hire them in the first place, right? Hire great people and then just get out of their way. Believe in the results that they can do for you. And also, when they experience setbacks, believe that they can get back on their feet and continue to do a great job for you. So having said that, if you manage people, if you think you'll manage people in the future, if you are an employee yourself and you want to just say like preach, I know what it's like. I do have a strategy group that you can join. It's on Facebook, and it's honestly, it's a free group. It's just a place just to talk about management, which now that I say that out loud, it sounds really boring. But I promise you, it's not academic. It's not, I don't want to say it's not HRE. The reason I say it's not like human resourcey is because sometimes in human resources, we can make things really theoretical and like just really not practical. So if you are looking for just a practical approach to management in a way that really works well, I'd love for you to join this group. It's called Rockstar Employee Strategies for Growing Businesses. I realize you can't see the link. You can just see the actual thing, but actually you go to facebook.com and you do, what is it called? What's it called? Groups. Wait. There it is. Get Rockstar Employees. If you go there, you'll see the group and people who are in it. So anyway, I hope this helps. If you don't have the resource, again, I'll put it in the description. And also, if you don't know me, if you've never seen my content before and you like what you're seeing, I am on Facebook, but I'm especially on LinkedIn, and I put a ton of content out on LinkedIn. Definitely connect with me there. And yeah, I hope this helps, and I'll see you later. See you guys.